Good morning, Juventini. I'm your guest host today, Juventino Lou, here at the All Juvecast. We have a great post-match recap to do this morning. On a not-so-great match. It was a little bit of a tough match yesterday, but we'll get into it. But my guest today, the great Daniel Lucci.
Morning,
and,
boys.
of course, the gaffer, Alberto.
I think I'm just slideshow boy today. I think I'm just going to run the slides on the highlight reels and just hang out.
Well, backed by popular request, they were like, it's time to shift you to the side, bring in some fresh meat. So bear with me, everyone, because I've never hosted one of these before. But before we get into the match, please go on YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, like, follow, subscribe, share the podcast post, the live feed on Twitter. And in addition, please go check out Striped Hearts. The new merch drop that's coming out is phenomenal. And the Azzurri kit that Dan's got, the hat that Al's got, the sweatshirt. I mean, my Azzurri hoodie, which I don't have on now, but it's in my closet, I wear every day. It's the most comfortable piece of clothing I have.
Yeah.
So
and we got to say, how can you not let this guy host when he's sporting the Rocky tracksuit?
I mean,
you're setting, the show is going to be set up to bang when the host is rocking this tracksuit.
It's Sundays are for tracksuits. That's what it is.
Yeah.
So the match, guys, this was brutal. There's not really much to say about it, but we're gonna get to the highlights here real quick. Start off with that, but we'll begin with the lineups. And the lineup coming in was a little bit hot topic. Will we see the same lineup from Zenit? Allegri made one or two changes. It was, the basic 4-4-2 from Zenit. The change was Rabiot was in for Bernardeschi, and Chiellini was set to start next to De Ligt, but he ended up pulling out with an injury, and Rugani came in instead. So, fellas, what were your thoughts on the lineups? Dan, we'll start with you. Tell me what you thought when you saw the lineup.
Yeah, you're always concerned when Rabiot decides to come in and attempt to do something. That was, I'm sure we'll talk about him a lot throughout this one. The Rugani is obviously also a little bit of a scare, but with injuries and Bonucci playing all the time, I guess he's got to get some minutes at some point. So not unfortunately, luckily for us, he didn't burn us, and we'll take that one, and that's it.
Al, your thoughts?
I'm starting to get this feeling like Allegri just loves to stick it to anybody who questions any of his motives or decisions and stuff, even if he knows they're wrong. Because to continue to plug Adrien Rabiot over there on the left like that is mind-blowing. Like, it's mind-blowing. And then the whole Rugani thing just has complete faith in it. He didn't have an option. If Bonucci needs rest and then Chiellini gets a muscle injury. And again, why nobody is talking yesterday about how many muscle injuries this team gets is beyond me. But anyways, he gets Rugani in there. The Rugani move was genius. Okay, I tweeted that. With every second that goes by that he doesn't score, that Vlahovic doesn't score, his value decreases drastically. I think we can now pick him up for a bag of match balls after not bagging one with Rugani on the pitch. So that's pretty smart on Allegri's part. I'll give him that. But the Rabiot thing's got to end. It has to end without question. That's my thoughts on the line. Everything else, I'm cool with.
Yeah, I agree. I think there was, Allegri has more say in the transfers now, and he was like, let's knock 10 mil off that price, and it was like, pair him with Rugani. The Rugani thing, I mean, we all kind of groaned at it, but, even without the injury, Bonucci looked half dead the last three matches. He's made some mistakes. When Bonucci plays 7, 8, 9 matches in a row, mentally he just kind of goes a little bit. So you got to give the man a break. Mm-hmm. Chiellini, it was unfortunate. As far as the midfield, I didn't understand bringing Rabiot in. If you're playing a proper 4-3-3, I could live with it as much as I dislike the guy. But the weird hybrid thing they were doing, why change it from Zenit? It just didn't make any sense to me. Mm-hmm. But now transitioning from the lineup, we'll get into the highlights here in a minute. Starting off in the 9th minute, Morata breaks 3, taps the ball way out of the way. His first touch kind of lets him down. He gets to the keeper, goes to round him. The touch around the keeper is not good enough. And then he kind of ends up in no man's land. Dybala sends it over. And that was our first real chance. 32nd minute, Saponara, great spot, goes high and wide.
Yeah, we should touch on this one too, Lou. Just take a look at, I don't know if you guys caught it on first glance there, but like the drop off between our mid and our defenders, like he doesn't pick him up at all. I think that's McKennie there, right? So you could see him here. He's in behind the ref, Saponara there. And then McKennie's got his back to play. Rugani is so focused on Vlahovic. He's not making a shout. Danilo's in there, but nobody's making a shout to McKennie whatsoever, right?
Yeah, and almost
just kind of slots in there. He's got this whole pocket right there. The ball actually falls to him, and we were pretty fortunate on this one. He ends up volleying it over, right?
Yeah, I agree. And Saponara is that type of player that, you forget about him, he would come on and score against Juventus. That's just, sort of our luck over the years.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
Lucci, anything else to say on this one?
No, we did get a little lucky, I think, especially still being early on, I guess. McKennie or even someone has to give him a shout, tell him, look around you kind of thing, keep your eye open. But it is what it is, I guess.
Yeah, I agree. McKennie has to do a little bit better there defensively because, that could have cost us a goal very early, and that would have been very costly for the rest of this game. Moving forward, 35th minute, corner comes in, falls to the cleanup guy, Callejon, and he tried to rip it. Not really threatening, though.
Slideshow Berto let you down on that one, too, because I don't have a slide for it.
Got a little lucky there, too, to BH, because, anytime it falls to the cleanup guy, it could be ugly. Yeah. Next, Juve gets away with one a little bit at the end of the first half for a handball.
Did you think he got? I thought for sure he got away with one.
Yeah, I think it's a soft handball, but based on today's rules, I think that it would have been called. Lucci, what did you think?
Well, I was just gonna say I think we've seen worse given called. So I was a little surprised, but again, we'll take it. Like sometimes
Moji
you need
effect,
these breaks.
baby. Moji effect.
Also, anytime it goes to VAR and they're waiting for it like a long time, you almost think it's going to be a PK. Like it's kind of like the thing that happens. I don't know, but we'll see. So first half ends 0-0. Fellas, what were your thoughts on the first half and the performance? Al, we'll start with you.
Oh, it wasn't near good enough whatsoever. I mean, to end up with 0 shots on target, 4 total attempts, I think, something low like that. It's just not good enough whatsoever. And the biggest thing for me was that the bare minimum of what I expect, which is what we saw against Zenit, is your effort, drive, and determination. And that was a big drop off from the Zenit game to this one. So regardless of what players you have playing and where you play them, I need that type of determination and drive the whole way through. I saw Dybala unable to shield one with minimal contact, throw his arms up and be pissed off, and they ran right back at us. That can't happen. All the guys need to fight through all the challenges all the time. And when you see, again, it's so frustrating because here I thought he was making this big turn and then and starting to embody that leadership thing. But then, he goes and acts like that and gets a little frustrated. And that's the opposite of what we need out of him and or everybody. If you're going to wear the armband, you got to set the tone. I was pretty pissed off with that. And all the guys were flat. They were flat. So put it on Max, put it on whoever. It needed to be much, much better. And honestly, when you look at Fiorentina and how they play, we continue to not use some of our guys in a method to hurt our opposition. And I thought Chiesa in this one, we should not have done that. It's frustrating that we had him almost out of the game for too much of it, right? There's a lot of things I didn't like about this one, to be honest. But that's just kind of my thoughts. I think Max needs to get structure, built in offensively, because it still feels like a lot of reliance, right? Like we're just relying on guys rather than guidance from the top. So that's just my thoughts.
Yeah, I echo those statements. I thought that there was some, it wasn't a very good first half. The Dybala part was a good shout. We've talked a little bit this week about his leadership being better in Zenit, but today was a little bit of a setback in that regard. So good shout there, Al. Lucci, what were your thoughts on the first half and the performance?
Yeah, I'm gonna pretty much say what Al was saying. We've seen this too many times now that they come out flat, and then if they scored one of those goals in the first half, we're looking just like we did against Sassuolo and Verona before that. Like you got to come out fast out the gate. You got to come out and try to go for a kill. And then especially if we go into half or into the second half down one, like this game could end completely different. I think we got a little lucky, to be honest. And I don't know. It's just like I want to see better performances all around. Although the second half was better, but in the first 45, everyone looked like they were sleeping.
Yeah.
Yeah. Another thing that I thought, like watching that first 45, I thought about Max's press conference when we went to the retreat, and he said that this team lacks mentality. They lack respect for their opponents, especially in the league. And I thought that this was a good example of it. I mean, I know they're fatigued. It's been a long stretch of games in a row, but where they were at versus Zenit versus where they are at here were night and day difference. And a lot of the same people were starting that match. Al, you mentioned here and in the chat a little bit about the execution in the first half was very, very poor.
Yeah.
A lot of, chances gone by where, they just need a ball slip through in the final third, given away, wasn't good enough. And also the lineup itself, I mean, you saw the first half, it just didn't work because they tried to keep going down the left-hand side, which I don't know why they were doing that. But Sandro and Rabiot are basically down 2 men over there. And then on the other side where Chiesa is, they're not getting him the ball. So it was a very frustrating half. There's a lot of things where I looked at it and was just like, why are we doing this?
Yeah, we should touch on Anthony too here, because his thought was he thought Morata played well yesterday. I also want to touch on this from Alex P. Structure up top will probably never happen since Max doesn't believe in it, but we'll see. So this is perfectly tying into yesterday's game, because what you saw is, I think with Morata, I agree to Anthony's point, because he did his job of what he needed to do in terms of pulling defenders out of position when not opening up spaces. The problem is, without the structure, the guy that you need to attack the space wasn't getting in the space that was being created. So it didn't work together as a whole. And that's honestly what we've seen a lot of this season. But you're right. There were opportunities where it did come together, and then our passes just let us down. And that was a big, big thing in the first half. Like our passing was woeful. They couldn't string enough together. So it's all got to come together and work. But in this match, it was a bit more than just the awkwardness of Rabiot on the left. There was more to it in our struggles. So
yeah, I agree. I do agree with Ant's point. I mean, Morata, he didn't have a great game, but he had a decent game. I think that he made runs. I'm trying to think. I think it was around the 30th minute. Dybala turned a defender, and Morata made a great run in behind, and the ball through just like wasn't good enough. And that is, not to single out Paulo's performance or anything, but that's just a good example of the execution lacking. But I do agree with Alex P's point, which is an important one, is that Allegri traditionally he kind of lets his forwards run a little free, which is good in a sense because you don't want to handcuff them too much. But a game like this, you need to figure out how to get the best out of Dybala, Chiesa, Morata, because they're not, it's not like Ronaldo who knows exactly what the best thing to do for him is, right? Like Ronaldo, you really don't have to tell what to do, not to make this about Ronaldo, but those players, they need some structure. They need,
I feel
a little bit more.
I feel like it's arrogant though. I feel like it's arrogant to just not. I feel like it's a disrespect to the opponent to think that it's okay. I could just let these guys free flow and have no plan, no set thing, and yeah, it's just gonna work. Like it's at some point you have to respect your opponents a bit and what they do, and figure out how to break them down. If you guys are giving these guys no guidance and you're just like, oh yeah, Dybala, you just roam around the pitch wherever you want. Chiesa, you're playing outside here. You do this. I don't know. It's kind of tough, and we saw it yesterday. Eric brings up a good point in terms of Bernardeschi. Yeah, he does attack the space, and Rabiot does not. But yesterday we had guys that did. We found ourselves in certain positions where we could do it in the pass less down. But for me, I don't know. I see it a little bit as arrogant from Allegri to just think that you can get away without like set design, set trait, set identity offensively of how we generate, right? What we do. I don't know. It's weird to me.
It is. I think arrogant's a good word for it. I think that we'll get into this a little bit once we finish the highlights, but about Allegri. But we have to be realistic too. Serie A has changed a lot since the last time he was manager, and I think that even Fiorentina playing the way they do is a lot different from how they previously did in the past. So you can't really be arrogant against any team in Serie A because even if you're better than will still attack you. Yeah. Lucci, anything more to add on the first half before we get into the second half?
Just more of the same. It's concerning to me, and I know we've thought through us, we've talked about this before, but when is Max going to realize that maybe he needs this team compared to his previous team needs a little more structure, needs a little more work than his previous years, especially going forward? I think that I know he's talked about the team being mentally, weak, or, they need to respect their opponents, but that also comes on to him, I feel. And yes, of course, the players need to go out and do their thing, of course, but you're not really setting them up for success when, the first 45, you're sleepwalking through it. I don't know. It's more frustrating, like Al said, than anything.
Okay. So, we'll move into the second half here.
Yeah.
And so start with the second half, 49th minute. Morata tips one, not wide by just much. We have the slide right here.
Yeah, nice job to tip it over the defender, and he has a good rip, man, just wide.
Yeah, the hold-up play there was excellent. That's one of Morata's strong suits is his hold-up play. It was very, very good attempt there. 54th minute, Rabiot takes a rip, deflected high. My heart stopped when I saw that because a Rabiot goal would have destroyed my mentions.
Oh, yeah. We're not even close on the 7 goals a season for Lou to get a jersey of Rabiot's. We're not even close. I don't think there's ever any threat there. And Slideshow Berto let you guys down on the Rabiot shot. So any Rabiot fans out there, sorry.
So then there's a little bit of a dead spot where the match was – Twitter was more interesting between this time than the match.
Yeah.
But 72nd minute, Milinkovic sees his second yellow card, and it's a red, and he's out. So, fellas, did you think this was a second yellow card? Lucci, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I don't think you can argue any other way. I saw one tweet where it's like it shouldn't have been, but how could it not be? I don't know.
Al?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, easily. Comes in late, gets a good chunk of them. Second yellow, you're out. For me, this was the time for Max. You saw guys warming up. Make your changes now. If you're going to do them, do it immediately after this card and go at them with everything. And to be fair, we pushed pretty hard.
Yeah, I agree. I thought he just should never made the challenge to begin with. I mean, obviously I was happy that he did, but for me, that was a given. So then moving on from there, 75th minute, Chiesa with an absolute rocket off the ball. I thought this was the moment. It was so close.
Such a weird play too, because the ball was awful, and you were like, "Oh man, what it is like a give and go that was awful ball." But he works around it and just smashes this thing, smashes the bar.
Took a weird little bounce too. It was a hell of a rip from Chiesa, and he made a great run in the lead up to that. Shortly after that, he gets another attempt from across from Cuadrado. They gets to and one times it right onto the goal.
Yeah, a little too close to keeper there.
Yeah, and it was coming. We could feel it coming a little bit, but there was still something in this performance where it felt like it was going to end 0-0. And then 90th minute, the man of the hour, Juan Cuadrado, who's a substitute, gets back to it, takes his man, gets into position, has a hit with a slight deflection, and slips it right into the near post to make it 1-0 and win the game.
Yeah. Like this was, oh man.
I mean, in my head, I thought Cuadrado was going to take a touch and dive. I thought that was it was one of those things. But, when he ripped that shot, I mean, it was unbelievable. I ran around my living room like Jose Mourinho.
I scared the absolute hell out of my 2.5-year-old when that thing went in the net because I was losing it. I jumped off the couch. I was screaming. And she just stared at me. It's like I forgot everybody that was around. She's just staring at me. I turn and look at her. She's like, "What's wrong?" And I'm like, "No, it's good. It's good."
Lucci, what was your reaction when Cuadrado scored that goal?
Man, I'm just happy someone scored. Like it could have been Perrine up there with a damn header for all I cared. I don't care. I'm just a win is a win at the end of the day.
Yeah, no, I'm same way. I mean, just a great finish to an awful game.
Man, if it was Rugani, it would have been double the pleasure. Okay, we just brought Vlahovic's stocks down, increase Rugani's. Oh yeah, straight across Rugani for Vlahovic.
I mean, it just. What can you say about Cuadrado? I mean, the man does it all the time. But so moving on, so with the match ending 1-0, the 3 points obviously really important. I think it's a good time to transition into the match itself, and most importantly, Max Allegri, and kind of your thoughts on his performance this season so far. His performance in the match, which I think a lot of us have an opinion on. Lucci, start us off. Tell me what you think about Allegri and kind of how he's done this year so far, and what he messed up during the match yesterday.
Yeah.
It's sorry to cut you boys off. Let's get man of the match out of the way.
Oh, yes. I almost forgot.
Let's do that one real quick.
Yeah. All right.
Brought to you by Striped Tarts Apparel, of course. Check out the site. Now, Lucci, go with your man of the match first, and then we'll come back to you to the question.
Yeah, I'm gonna go De Ligt. Guy was an absolute animal and had to play with Rugani yesterday, so it's like double the work.
There you go. De Ligt. Lou, who was yours?
Mine was also De Ligt. He was solid. He pocketed Vlahovic for most of that match. Special shot for Cuadrado for the goal, but De Ligt gets it for today.
Yeah, De Ligt was up there for me. McKennie was up there for me, and Cuadrado for finding the winner there, seemingly on his own. Any one of those three, I'd be fine with. Honestly, I thought McKennie was an animal yesterday. But De Ligt, shit, he had Rugani next to him. That's got to take the precedence there. So let's go with that.
Can we also say that Rugani played a pretty good match despite what we thought?
Man, he treated Vlahovic like a sea turtle, man.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I hope that he never plays again, but like he did well yesterday. Like he did do well.
He did
his job. It was ugly, was ugly at times, but nonetheless effective, and he got the job done. So bravo to Rugani.
All right, so to the topics. Thank you, Al. Bear with me, everyone. Like I said, never hosted before. Got one mistake.
You're doing great.
But so to the topics, Allegri, kind of like Lucci, what are your thoughts on his performance, not only yesterday, but as the season as a whole? What's your evaluation of Allegri? What's he done right? What's he done wrong?
Yeah.
Talk to me about your thoughts on the gaffer.
I think we still keep seeing the same concerns that we saw at the beginning of the season. I don't know if he's learning anything or he's trying to stick with something that he hopes will work. Like we see again late, the subs maybe a little late. They got the starting 11 a little wrong. And just the tactics, this 4-4-2, we've talked about this time and time again. Yes, it looked fine against Zenit, but it's Zenit. In Serie A, they kind of know what to expect when Allegri's doing the same thing every time. And, like I said, some of his subs have been late. Some of his subs have been terrible also. So it's tough. I think he still needs a lot to learn. And yes, the club, the team, the players need to be better, but I still think quite a bit still comes on to him and hopefully adapting his style a little bit.
Yeah, I think that's a great point about, like trying to adjust, being a little stubborn as well. Those are all really good points, Lucci. Al, what are your thoughts on not just the match, but Allegri as a whole this season?
I think our friend Georg here summed it up very, very nicely in this 5.5 out of 10. I mean, the same concerns as his final season, the first time around, just depending on individual moments. So the fear is, well, now he's also got this weird thing about substitutes that's trending this year, which never really used to be an issue of his. It used to be a strong suit, making the right changes, the right time. And oddly enough, this season, it's kind of been weird with him. Like he's not in rhythm with substituting. And again, Eric brought it up earlier in the pod, and I did as well. The second Milinkovic leaves the pitch, your changes should be in there, and you take advantage of it. So it's really, really weird. The whole thing's weird. Again, almost this arrogance and stubbornness about Rabiot on the left, and the same thing follows him around this season. I even said it last year with Pirlo, outside of a strong 11 with his team, and it doesn't matter, you could change a shape, whatever shape you want, because we have so many similarities, number one in the midfield, and some question marks on quite a few players. What ends up happening is whatever setup you put, you have a strong 11, and outside of that, when you want to rotate, it's very, very strange. Like you're sacrificing something, right? So it's a matter of finding what's going to hurt you the least in the sacrifice you make in rotation, right? This particular lineup today, factoring in how Fiorentina plays, probably would have been more effective as a 4-3-1-2 and get Chiesa much more involved up top. Have Morata there when he creates a space. Chiesa's there to pounce on it, right? Dybala still assists our midfield in that role and whatnot. It's just, I think it's too easy for him to just plug things in and just say, okay, we're going to go out this way. Defensively, you see his structure and his setup coming through. But is it working? Is it the best? Our counterattacks have kind of died off. Nobody's really talking about it, but our counterattacking, it looked pretty strong in the beginning and it's fizzled, right? So yeah, I think Max has a lot of work to do. And honestly, the concern grows with each match week that he may not necessarily have really evolved himself in any way, shape, or form over the 2 years that he spent off. That's the growing fear amongst many Juventini.
Yeah, I agree with both of your statements. They were all pretty spot on. I think that, what you see right now is Allegri is adjusting. Like he talked about after Udinese or Empoli, one of the first two matches, he forgets often that he has 5 substitutes, right? That's something that came in after he left, right? And it doesn't sound like a big adjustment for a coach, but it is. I mean, if you remember, like when it was first implemented, even Sarri for a little bit was struggling with the 5 substitutes. So that's definitely a factor. Serie A as a whole has changed. Like we said before, the smaller clubs will attack you. They'll try and put 3 or 4 past you. They'd rather lose than, draw 1-1. So that's another thing that's different. But I do think as far as the match went, tactically, I won't say it's a rookie mistake, but it kind of is a rookie mistake to take the brilliant performance you had Wednesday. Now I understand the back line had to be changed because of injury, but completely switch the midfield that has been an issue for you and has worked. Why not try and build on that? I don't know if Bernardeschi was hurt, what the deal was, if he was fatigued, but that should have been an easy, hey, let's stay with what's working for us. Oftentimes I look at this team and I think that Allegri's caught between two minds. I think, at the start of the year he wanted a counterattacking team. Now they're having more of the ball. He can't seem to settle on one thing or the other. And it feels like, I feel like he looks at his bench and goes, there's really not much here. He recognizes he can't flip all of it yet. And it's kind of like, maybe I only have 13 to 14 players I can do, So I don't know. Maybe that's defending him, maybe that's not. But I thought that, he made some mistakes yesterday. He's made a couple of mistakes this year, even in the start of games, that have cost us some points. I did like, though, the Luca Pellegrini for Sandro move. Not that Luca Pellegrini was great yesterday, but just the idea that somebody needs to tell Sandro to, like, get into shape. Just like, you're not playing well, like, get off the pitch. Like, I like that. But his substitutions were late yesterday.
Yeah.
And I don't know. It's really frustrating to watch. I could see it getting down to Juventus getting frustrated with Max.
I mean, that's a tough thing too, right? It's a lot of the same frustrations. So I don't think it's necessarily like, I think Max would get leeway for sure coming back into this. It's not, I didn't expect him to pick up and we were going to run away with the Scudetto like Mr. Prediction Man Anthony there, Valentine's Day. I see Luca and Ant patting each other's backs in the live chat there on prediction of man of the match there, but Scudetto win by Valentine's Day. Pump the brakes there. I did expect Juve to be in the mix, though, for the Scudetto. I will say that because, honestly, I thought we were hard done by in a lot of matches last season, and some of them could have been changed by the experience of a manager. But now we're running into different struggles. Again, I highlighted it in the numbers. We're 10 points off of possession that we held last season, averaging 60%. We're barely at 50 this season. Okay. Big change there. This season, we're allowing a lot of opportunities from loss of possession, right? So it's different. Everything's a little bit different. How he wants to play is completely different. Is it the best for the guys we have? I don't necessarily know. And the problem is Max going to change it? Nobody here knows. You can hear it in the live chat. You can read it. Everybody's got the same feelings. Will Max actually change anything? Because even if you look at the great game against Zenit, Max didn't change anything. We just had Bernardeschi in. But the players' attitude was miles ahead of this one against Fiorentina. They were flat against Fiorentina for the most part. Okay. I saw the chat there when I was talking about Dybala and throwing his arms up there, and he said, "Oh, relax, Al. It's one play." It's not one play because you had multiple players that were flat. Okay, outside of those guys that were honestly in the mix for man of the match, like McKennie was on it all game. Outside of that, De Ligt on it, and credit to Rugani, he was on it. Outside of that, I don't know. I didn't see enough of the fight and the willingness to push through challenges. I saw a couple guys back out of some 50-50s and not go full throttle. I don't like seeing that. They should treat every match the same. Put it on the players, put it on Max. I don't know, but consistency is an issue throughout the lineup and our manager right now. So he's got to find a rhythm. He's got to find his pocket. And I think he's got to understand the players he has. We credit Max a lot for understanding roles that players can fill. But right now, he's not doing it in terms of rotation. Because when the rotation comes in, we get a big dip. So he's got to figure out his 1B, I guess, right?
Yeah. So there's a question here in the chat about Arthur. And I think this will transition to our next topic, which is, what's the best way to line this team up, in your guys' opinion? Personnel, formation, but also to get the best out of some of these players, like an Arthur or a Chiesa. Because I think at least in the Chiesa category, we really, we really think we're being left with something more to desire from Chiesa. Because, I think he could be, a 10, 15 goal a season kind of guy, but, the tactics don't really suit him. But overall, what's your thoughts on the formation, the lineup, how to get the best out of this current group of players? Lucci, you start.
Well, if you want Artur in the starting 11, you got to play a midfield 3. I think that's the only way. Him and Locatelli, I don't really trust in a 2-man pivot. With that said, me and Al have said this many times. Like a 4-2-3-1 would be great for our attacking players. But I don't really see Max going to that right now, especially with, the concerns in the midfield. Maybe you try Locatelli and McKennie to do it, but that's also risky. the only way I see Max changing is if, we have a lot of injuries and he has no choice to change. But I don't know. Yeah, we've discussed his concerns, and Artur has looked good in spurts, but also I haven't seen enough from him to see him get into the starting 11 as of right now.
Yeah. It's tough, man, trying to figure out like the best 11, but again, it changes based on who you have to play.
Yeah.
And when you have to make those changes. If you've got Rabiot on the pitch, it has to be a midfield 3. Like it has to be. He did figure out one thing, like you're not going to have Bentancur and Rabiot share the pitch in a middle 3 because it doesn't work. It doesn't work. So McKennie on one side, Locatelli and Arthur, I'm fine if you decide you're going to split them up amongst the 2 rotations, right? That's fine. But yeah, your two-man pivot starts to fade away. The more I look at this team and everything, again, 4-3-3 is probably the way to go. And the only way it changes from that is Dybala. Dybala can work in a 4-3-3, but it depends. You just have to push up with one of your fullbacks, and then he has to slide in centrally, right? It can work. Is it the most effective? Again, this goes back to my earlier comment. You always have to sacrifice something with the lineups. With Juventus, that's the way it is with the players we've accumulated and everything and looking for a system. You're always going to sacrifice something. What is it that you choose to sacrifice? Is it going to hurt us, right? That's what you got to ask yourself. But 4-3-3 is probably the best, I think, going forward. Bernardeschi can play on that wing. It's still, those outsides still essentially do the same job, but it gives them a little more freedom with the 3-man balance across the mid. Split Locatelli and Artur. Bernardeschi could be used as a Mezzala out there and still do a lot of damage. That's where the creativity can come from in a midfield 3, because you need one of those guys. You have Locatelli at the heart of it, Bernardeschi on one side, McKennie on the other, strong. Bernardeschi on one side, Bentancur on another, good. Rabiot should fill on one side, but you still have to have a creating force on the other. So midfield 3, you could still have Rabiot there, but McKennie's got to be in there on one side, right? Or Rabiot, Bernardeschi, vice versa, right? Artur and Locatelli swap. And then your forwards, let the forwards go to work. The nice thing about Bernardeschi, you could use him as an outside. Morata up top. Caio Jorge up top. Start getting some minutes. Rotate him in as well and whatnot. Chiesa can go side to side. So there is some versatility there. I think, personally, it's who he chooses to use and when and how. Like for Max, like he can do better than what we're seeing. And the signs are all there. It's clear as day when you watch us play where the breakdowns are. Just figure it out. It's I don't see it being this difficult, really. Like, and we talk about quality of players and all this and whatnot, but there's no way we are not miles ahead of Fiorentina for quality that we should play like that. So when you start to continue with the player quality thing, look at the teams we're struggling with. I can't get behind that. That's just me.
Yeah, I think you guys both hit really good points. I'm with you, Al, on the 4-3-3. I think that, in the Zenit match, we started with a 4-2-3-1, 4-4-2, and in the second half, Allegri changed it to a more standard 4-3-3, and it got a lot out of us, especially on the counterattack, gave us extra man in the midfield. Chiesa had a lot more freedom to kind of run at the ball. Dybala popped out wide. He was effective. He cut in. So I think that's the best way to go. Bernardeschi in the left side of midfield. Whatever you think of Bernardeschi in the past, his form this year has been good. He does his job well. And that's a big thing for me with Juventus is regardless of quality or, the type of players, Rabiot's a French international, Bentancur's a Uruguayan international. They don't do their roles for Juventus well enough. It's just what it is. So
how do you guys feel about the 3-5-2 John Stewart brings up here? For me, we don't have the depth at CB.
I think the 3-5-2 at its best, I think that you need midfielders that are going to give you a lot of goals in 3-5-2 to get it out, and I don't think that we have that.
And to add on to that, Lou, I think we're kind of wasting Chiesa and Bernardeschi as wing backs there instead of trying to get them, especially Chiesa, higher up the pitch. That's where you want them.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I just, maybe on one side because De Sciglio looks really good as left wing back, so maybe that's good call. I think that he probably has a good argument to start at left back if he's fit again.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think the 4-3-3 is probably the best one. As far as the Arthur question goes, there's too much unknown with Arthur. And I think this is a lot of like kind of the squad as a whole. Allegri looks at them and goes, everyone's kind of one-dimensional in their own way. Like Arthur's really good at possessing the ball. He's really good in his passing accuracy. He keeps the ball, but he gives you nothing defensively, and he gives you nothing in the final third. Mm-hmm. So now you're kind of just like, he's like a regista, but he's not a regista. It's a really weird kind of mix because if Locatelli plays the regista, he gives you an extra man defensively. If he plays forward, he gives you an extra man in attack. There's a kind of a lot of that where it's one person. There's a lot of caught in two minds with this team. But I think in the 4-3-3, if McKennie stays, consistent, if you can get consistency from Bernardeschi, you could have a really dangerous team, especially because both Bernardeschi and McKennie can kind of slot in that number 10 Mezzala rule and help the attack.
And
the other thing too, I think we got to touch on too while we're talking about formation setups and all this is again the fear factor. Like Juve just can't be afraid to risk to get after games and go at it. Like when you watch the Zenit match and you watch this one, granted the opposition like Zenit not great for a Champions League team, fantastic in Russia, that's great, but obviously down. Fiorentina knows Juventus very, very well. The fear factor in opponents facing Juventus is essentially gone and has been wiped out. But the thing is, we played the right game against Zenit. You have to have that same type of approach and mentality against all your opponents. Like if you look at this one against Fiorentina, how many times did you see our forwards alone, like on an island? Right? Mm-hmm. You can't do that. You just can't do it. You can't be afraid to. Chiesa spent a lot of time wasting energy in just doing nothing, really, like just covering ground, protecting ground for us in a shape and whatnot. And it's not working. You can't be scared to send the numbers up. And until Fiorentina lost that man, it still took close to 10 minutes or till we finally sent the right number of guys to cause problems. And it should have been like that from the start.
Do you think that's a Max problem or you think that's a personnel problem? Because if you remember last year, we had issues with, traditionally Allegri teams, midfielders score a lot of goals, right? It's not just the forwards that bring in a lot of goals. Midfielders score a lot of goals. And last year, even under Pirlo, how many games would we be frustrated if McKennie didn't play? Rabiot, Bentancur, Arthur, they don't really get into the box. They don't have goals in them. A lot of time they don't even try an effort from deep, So I think that's part of the problem is, it's not just Allegri being pragmatic, which is a portion of the problem, but also your players. They don't understand that fundamental of, hey, here's a run into the box, create some space, make a cross. I think that's a huge part of it. But it's a little bit of both. It's hard to define it as just one or the other.
It's on everyone.
Yeah.
It's on everyone. Like for me, a team should never come out flat, like period. That's the bare minimum. That's on Max. That's on Max. And if the players aren't doing that, then they're not going into the lineup flat out. Like you can't afford that, especially if you want to play the way Max does. Like you just got guys that are flat. Luca making a comment here about Rabiot mentally still being on the bench, even while being on the pitch. It's on Max. Max got to make sure these guys have that proper approach. You can't be in Retiro all season long. You can't have a season-long Retiro. So if one game of proper mentality is what we get out of a Retiro, did it really do anything? It's got to be that way the whole way through. And the players said, this isn't going to be a one-off. We're ready to go, but you come out flat against Viola. The other thing is, as far as the players go, this is on. Technically, it's a little bit on Max too, though, because if you think about it, you have players that you could tell understand where the space is, how to attack it, and whatnot. Rabiot is not one of those guys, right? Bernardeschi is. Locatelli, it's it goes almost unnoticed. But what the Azzurri showed, he knows when to attack the space. He knows when to get involved in that area and punish teams. Rabiot doesn't have that. So to continue to ask a player to do that, is that on the player? Is it on the manager? You guys decide. Does he have any other options? Let's ask that question, Lou.
Yeah. Lucci, you field this one first.
It's tough. He would have other options if he played a different formation. It comes back to that. And I think, and someone in the comments here, I don't know how Max said Rabiot had a good game yesterday. I agree with that. What was he watching that I didn't what didn't I see that Rabiot did well? He had one chance, which got deflected, went out for a corner. That's all I remember him doing. Again, with Max, if you really want to stick to a 4-4-2, play.
Oh, snap. Rovella Hive's coming in here.
Here we go.
Rovella Hive. It's alive.
Chiesa, Quadrado. I don't know. The 4-4-2 from the beginning is, I don't think that's it. But
yeah. But I mean, just again, we just keep going in circles, right? Because it's up to everybody. The players are not free and clear, but Max can do better. I think we all agree.
I do. Okay, so this might sound a little strange, but if he does feel like sticking to the 4-4-2, why not try Pellegrini as a left midfielder? Because we criticize him for his defensive abilities, but going forward, he's a lot better.
It's not a bad shot. If you're not going to play Bernardeschi, you might as well try it.
Right. At least he can give you something going forward more than Rabiot can.
Also, though, it is kind of conceding that you're the weaker opponent in the match like that. You're almost conceding that you're going to park it a little bit if you're playing that against Fiorentina, right?
Yeah, but Pellegrini's more known for a wing back, isn't he? Than an actual left back.
But here's the thing too: is we ourselves now are starting to try and reinvent the wheel here with this team, and I don't think we have to. I think it's literally line your guys up in their most natural spots, and let it happen, let it go. But the biggest thing is, don't have a fear of the attack and sending the numbers in. Against Fiorentina, we were so passive for a lot of it. And again, while we talked about execution and the lack thereof that took place in passes in certain sequences, we still do that to ourselves because we have to be executing at such a high percentage because of how we play. We don't allow pressure to swarm opponents and allow them to make errors that create opportunities for us where they do it to us. The other thing about this 4-4-2, the press is so unbalanced. It's barely existent. So I don't know, Pirlo had the thought of, and a lot of managers do, of using the press as your first line of defense, right? And pressing high up the field and whatnot. But if we're going to allow them to come back and continue to have 0 or 1 counterattacks a game, something has to change. That's not a way to make a living. So I don't know. I find this flux, but the 4-4-2 is not. The 4-3-3 gives us an even spread, right? But again, when we talk about earlier structure, if you give players freedom, no matter what setup you're in, when you try to apply a press, how on earth do you do that without leaving yourself susceptible because you have players drifting because they have no structure? It's very hard to do that. Yeah. And if you're giving freedom to guys that like to roam, and too many of them, the second the opponent gets the ball, there's always gaps and openings. How do you put a solid, strong press in? You really can't, because these guys there's too much freedom, right?
And this goes back to something that I think Bonucci said this. He talked about Allegri as a coach and what his strengths are. And it's the fact that he kind of lets players dictate in the game, how they're going to play, how they're going to change things. He's constantly changing things from the sideline, but he's also leaving a lot up to his players to define, which was fine in the past because we had a group of World Cup winners, veterans. But now you got a lot of young players that maybe aren't that level, and they need more structure. And that's where you almost wonder, not to make this a Pirlo in or a Pirlo out thing, but you almost wonder if this team had any continuity, would it be slightly better? Because now it's more of it's a new manager who's an older manager is used to a certain type of player with a type of player that maybe can't meet that standard. Yeah. That could be a part of it. I do think you're right, Al. Like Allegri needs to simplify things. It needs to be, hey, play in your designated position. Let's not try and stretch it. No hybrid, BS. Let's just get the structure down, get a good structure, and then maybe start to tinker.
But then the thing is, too, 4-4-2 in your natural position puts Chiesa a little further out than you'd want him, right? You want the midfielders to kind of line up that base and have Chiesa a little higher up. So
sure,
there still becomes question marks in terms of. It's a hell of a discussion you can have in terms of would this team have evolved better under keeping Pirlo or to Allegri now. I said the same thing when the Conte talk came up. I think any manager you plug into this team right now, you have problems. They're just different, right? It's not 100% with any of these guys going. Would they have grown more? They would have been different. Maybe we would be allowing more goals. Like, who knows, right? Maybe we'd be scoring more, getting more chances. Sure, it's all different. The biggest thing for this team is to get the stability going and ride it out. But if we are 1 year removed, granted CR7's gone, and all of a sudden we drop out of top 4 and maybe players aren't progressing as they have, do you raise the question of, that's when you probably have the discussion of would we have been better off, right? But the difference is you have to commit to something, right? Juve had to commit to something, and they can't ride it out after you. My fear is that if it does get worse, and I hope it doesn't, I hope we finish in top 4, we can go Champions League. Hopefully we make a great run in Champions League. Max figures it out, gets the guys going, the confidence picks up, because if not, this team can't afford to make another manager change.
No,
we can't afford it.
Yeah, I agree. And there's
our eggs are in the Allegri basket, boys, whether you people like it or not.
Yeah, there's another really interesting point, I think, and this goes back to not just the manager but management. Wherever before the Zenit game, I think the first one. Thank you for that, by the way, Dre. You're the man.
And we had 23, we had 27 on earlier. There better be minimum that many likes.
Smash that like button, fellas, please. But Ever had mentioned that management, if after a year you didn't live up to standards, you were shipped out, right? And a lot of that kind of now is you're seeing kind of the digression is that we have these players who've been here 3, 4, 5 years and not improved. And you're kind of looking at Allegri, you're just like kind of dumped on a lot of these, non-useful players. I think back to our original point, I think 4-3-3 is the solid one, right? I think we all kind of agree on that. Against smaller sides, a 4-2-3-1 might be more useful. You can get Cuadrado out on the right, maybe Chiesa on the left, provide a little bit more assist. But you got to get something from those midfielders in the box because Morata can't do it alone. And if Dybala is going to play deep, players like McKinney, Locatelli, they got to get forward a little bit more.
Yeah.
So it's definitely interesting. It's going to be. I'm curious to see how it plays out in December because the schedule softens a little bit. When we come back from the break, it's difficult, but softens a little bit in December. There's some time to make some adjustments.
Lou, it's time, I think.
For the Cuadrado question.
I think it's time. Yeah.
All right. Okay. So this was a topic of debate yesterday. I'm sure Lucci has a ton of thoughts on it. Is Cuadrado a Juventus legend? Give me your thoughts. We'll start with you, Lucci, because Twitter was after you yesterday. Even I had to poke fun at you.
They're still at me. It's going crazy still. Jesus.
Lead us up. Is Cuadrado a Juventus legend? Yes or no? And why?
You know what? Just because I don't know why everyone thinks I hate him. I just want a fair criticism when everyone hates on Morata or Bernardeschi or Kulusevski, whatever. Cuadrado deserves the same amount of blame where he's been invisible practically this whole season. However, he has given everything for this shirt. He's come back a couple of times. He's always one of the players that's willing to try and run and press and he's okay, Ant, relax. I'm getting to it. I just want fair criticism. That's all. He's a legend. He's not an icon. Let's stop that right there.
Yeah.
He does good things. He deserves criticism like everyone else. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
Al, do you want to do this before I post Luca's comment?
He is a Juve legend. If you think about what defines a legend, what defines a legend to you? For me, Cristiano Ronaldo is not a Juventus legend. He smashed an insane amount of goals, broke the record for hitting 100. He's not a Juve legend though. Quadrado, he ticks all the boxes. Years put in, sacrifice, hard work, the trophies, and the contributions and the key moments. This guy has a lot of stories. Okay, key moments and contributions. He's a Juve legend. Does he frustrate the hell out of us sometimes? Absolutely, but he's a legend nonetheless. So yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, he's a legend.
I agree. I think you can't deny his part in Juventus's history, at least in the 9 Scudetto runs. The back end of that, he was a part of those teams. The last couple of years, he's been a huge player for us. He was major for us last year. He'll probably end up finishing like 7-8 years with the club. I think like legend's kind of like a looser term. It's like the fan favorites. It's like the Mandzukic's, the Zambrotas, like those kind of players. Icons are more like the Del Pieros, the Bonapartes, the Buffons. That's a different tier. Yeah. So I think that Quadrado is a Juventus legend. Although putting him on the same page as Barzagli is a little crazy there, Luca. But
I don't know about that one.
Like it depends on what you're throwing a legend around there. But like he's got the years put in with the Bianconeri, and he's got the trophies. Legendary moments as Pepe had. Is he a Juventus legend as well? Does Pepe have the trophies that Quadrado has? Has he been around as long? Is he up there on the assist leader? Like people got to realize Quadrado is like what, 4th all time for Juve assists?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if I'd be putting Pepe in there with Quadrado there. But
hey, I love Simone Pepe back in the day, so put him in there. I'm all for
it. Yeah, I think again, it's got up there. Clutch moments. 5 Scudetti ties him with Boniperti with 5. He's a Juve legend for sure. It's not like he's riding the pine throughout those Scudetti wins. He's always been a major piece, right? And that's not Simone Pepe hate talk, but it's completely different ball game, fellas. Completely different ball game.
Yeah, it'd be just like, I mean, if you think about even like, I was thinking about the year after Cardiff, we played Milan and that 3-1 victory at home, and Quadrado ended up scoring the goal that broke the deadlock. It's things like that, moments like that he's popped up throughout the years. The Inter Milan game at the San Siro, like that's what makes it legendary for me. It's you look back in 10, 15 years and you look at that game and be like, oh, Quadrado scored in that game, right? It's those are the things that make you a legend. So I think it's fair to say that he's a legend. Al.
Yeah, so somebody's Massimo's actually that's an interesting stat. And yeah, Quadrado is at 34 all-time assists. He's tied with Pirlo. And I believe they're at 5th there or whatnot all time.
Wow. I actually didn't know that before the show. I knew he was up there, but I didn't know he was in the top 5.
Yeah, he is. So I mean, honestly, that's why I say he literally checks all the boxes, right? So
he also has 22 assists in the last 2 seasons.
And he made Rocco Comiso cry yesterday. So let's go, everybody. Come on. Let's show a little bit of love there for Panita. Come on.
Yeah, that's enough. Al, real quick before we wrap up, there's been some Danilo Cancelo debate on the timeline again. It drives me nuts whenever I hear this, but can we just get your thoughts on the Danilo Cancelo debate? We'll start with you, the gaffer.
This is a perfect segue to it coming from Quadrado, because the comparison should not have been made for Danilo to Cancelo. The comparison should be made to Quadrado because he is in fact who became the right back. And the funny thing about it is Quadrado has more damn assists than Danilo and Cancelo put together in those 2 seasons. So who cares? Quadrado is fine. Danilo has been an ultimate ambassador for Juve and a perfect utility guy. It's fine. My biggest issue with that Mercado is not the fact of the name of Cancelo, young guy, moving on. It's the fact we had 2 fullbacks that could play left back behind Sandro, and we got rid of both and went in with no coverage for Sandro. That is my biggest thing. Yeah, I get it. Danilo can go over there, but for whatever reason, he's much, much better on the right. So it's not the same. That's more of an issue I have. Another one of the issues is when you look at the other deals, we have Luca Pellegrini who came in from Spinazzola, but on par, were they? No. Will they ever be? Probably not. I had high hopes for Luca Pellegrini, but it's not to say anything against Luca Pellegrini, but I think the offset there in what Spinazzola did and brought was drastically different. Spinazzola's had injury issues, a couple of them unfortunate, but the Cancelo thing, like, just let it go. Let it go. Cuadrado ended up being our right back, and honestly, Cancelo and Cuadrado both have defensive issues.
Yeah,
Might as well take the guy that has double the amount of assists. We're fine there. It's a non-issue for me. We move on. That's
Lucci,
my 2 cents.
anything to add to that?
no, I think he nailed it. It's annoying though. Like, how many years has it been now, and we're still talking about this? And I know someone mentioned this the other day. Like, getting the best out of Cancelo would probably been really hard with Allegri as the coach. Like Allegri's defense first. Structure from the back, and that's why now we see Cuadrado playing higher up the pitch, where Danilo's playing as the right back. So, it seems pretty fair that Danilo's better for us, and he's a better suited player for Serie A, where Cancelo is better for the EPL and scoring goals and attacking. So,
Yeah.
and Lazio fans will tell me that Danilo wouldn't even make it into their starting 11. So that's a whole other
Yeah,
discussion.
but what do they know? I'm with Alex. My last memory of Cancelo was that he got benched in Ajax because he pretty much just ran like a scared boy against the Ajax press in the first leg, and he was so bad they were like, let's bring DeShilio in the second one.
Yeah.
Not to say that he's not a good player, but we got a good player in return. Danilo, I think, has surprised us all. On paper, it didn't look great, but Danilo's now wearing the captain's armband at the end of the matches. So, it's a good piece to pair next to Bonucci and Chiellini.
Cancelo's in a farmers league too. Let's be honest.
Yeah, I mean the Premier League, it's a joke. What did he do at the Euro? Like,
No.
okay,
We are wrapping up though. Lou's been done a fantastic job, man. I want to give you a massive shout out. This is a long time coming. Again, we got an incredible team, and these guys deserve their opportunity. Last but certainly not least, look who decides to drop by.
Oh, look at that beard.
Well, thank you for letting me in.
Man?
I just wanted to, it was a big win yesterday, and I thought I should come in here. First of all, Lou, good job, buddy. It's not easy sitting in the hot seat. First of all, great job, because I've sat there before. There's a lot going on. You want to make sure everybody gets involved. So thanks for letting me in. People in the comments are probably like, what's that sweat hog doing there? Big win yesterday. I wanted to come in here and thank myself for the championship win on the predictions. So again, huge win. Thank you. I thank no one but myself, and I hope everyone has a great international break. And I'm riding high. I'm riding high into the break. So thank you.
You just came
Appreciate
to gloat.
I love it. I love it.
I deserve that one too, because I was making fun of him for being the prediction guy on Friday. So
that's why I'm here. Just because of you.
Go straight for me. That's fair.
I did my hair and everything just to come in here, just to talk to you, and that's it.
There you go. Alex Manzano, any love for Perrine? Yes, there's love for Perrine. I mean, he's come in, he's done his job, and it's always going to be an awkward scenario because it was highlighted very well that he wanted to leave, but he's done well when asked upon, which has been 2 times so far. So great. Anthony, glad that we could facilitate you and your own back padding. That's cool. Lucci, always a pleasure. Check out the Stripe Tarts gear. That's a sick long sleeve, by the way, from Stripe Tarts Apparel.
It's comfy.
Check it out. Free shipping, orders over 120. So show them some love. Juvecast.com. Speaking of our match hero, Cuadrado, a fantastic article from our friend there, Drink great handle, by the way. Fantastic Quadrado player profile. A lot of good articles from a lot of talented writers who are Juventini, just like you and I. And if anybody's listening, you want to take part in any piece of our community, whether it be the shows, whether it be writing, reach out. We've got graphic designers that are Juventini reaching out. By all means, we're all about sharing the love. So reach out to us and make sure you share the content. Okay. And let's keep continuing growing. Lou, absolute fantastic job, man. It's not easy. Okay.
I was a little nervy there during the highlights. I'll tell you, I was a little nervy.
You did great, man. You settled into the pocket and led a great discussion that really took us for a ride on a lot of different areas surrounding this team. So fantastic job, man. And everybody, thanks for the support. We're going into international break. We'll show the Azzurri some love and have something going on for them as well. Just stay tuned. And again, make sure you hit that like button on this video. Okay. We ride into the international break with a win there. We've equaled the points from 2015, was it, after 12 matches? So let's see what ends up happening. Much different team, but we'll see. We'll see what happens, everybody. Forza Juve, Fino alla Fina. Enjoy the international break and stay tuned because we're going to do something fun over the international break. That's right. I've got a ton of stuff over here, okay? I got shirts, I got jerseys, I got hoodies, I got Buffon captain armbands. I got to get rid of some stuff. We got to do some. You know what? Let's have some trivia challenges, okay?
Ooh.
That's right. If you're a subscriber, you follow us on Twitter. I think myself and Omar will probably take the lead, but we've got a lot of cast members that can do it. Reach out.
Don't put me in there.
And try
you have to give everything away if you put me in there. Don't put me in there.
You want to win some merch? Reach out. We're going to do a little bit of a fun trivia challenge where you can win yourself some merch. And the jerseys are actually quite sick. 96, 97 Del Piero's home. They're pretty sick. So stay tuned for that, everybody. As always, much love from the team here. Forza Juve, Fino alla Fina. Till next time. Ciao.
Ciao.